Hi, this is Mark. Thanks for choosing to listen to another episode of Explore Finland radio show. This episode was recorded in autumn 2017, where I went out on the road with my girlfriend Satu and Herra Boris the dog, and we recorded one of my road trip photo blogs, and on the same day we also recorded this interview in the town of Närpes and Närpiö in western Finland, about an hour or so west of Seinäjoki, where I am now. And we met with Marianne Winter. Marianne is a tour guide for the town of Närpes, and we specifically wanted to go and explore the unusual, the curious stables around the church in Närpes. If churches aren't really your thing, nor mine either, but they're often a good way into the culture of a country or of an area. And this area of Pohjanmaa has certain idiosyncrasies that we talk about and explore a little bit in this episode. So how about if I head over now and let you listen to my conversation with Marianne in Närpes. So I'm here today, I'm joined by Marianne Winter. She's the town guide for the town of Närpiö or Närpes, and we'll soon get into why this town has two slightly different names. Marianne, thank you for joining me today.
Yes, welcome to Närpes.
Thank you, and we're here inside the church at Närpes. You're the town guide. Please tell us a little bit about what we need to know about this church.
Well, the oldest parts are according to one of the vicars, early vicars, from 1435. But experts, there are church experts in Finland that say that this church is actually 100 years younger. But that hasn't been proved, so we usually say 1435. And you can see the walls there with the older parts. And then it started off as a square with a vaulted ceiling, very small church. And then it was extended in the 1500s, 1600s. And actually one very important event was 1555, when the bishop in Turku, Mikael Agricola, came here and consecrated the church, and he gave it the names Sankta Maria. It was consecrated to the Virgin Mary, and of course Agricola was a reformist, so this became a Lutheran church then. And then in the early 1700s, there was a period of war. In Finnish, it's called Isoviha, Stora Ofreden.
Who was the war between?
It was between Sweden and Russia.
Okay. Because
Finland was then, of course, a part of Sweden. And I mean, there have been very many wars between Sweden and Russia.
And Finland is in between the two,
yes,
so that's
exactly,
the battleground.
Exactly. Well, but then the church was very run down, so we had this vicar, Henrik Karlborg, who then wanted the church to be repaired, but he also extended it with the southern arm. And then he had a sacristy built in the northern part. We always talk about, these south and north and east and west. In Närpes, it's typical.
I said to you before we started that I don't spend a lot of time in churches, but I always like to come into these Finnish churches. They all look different, and this is beautiful. It's a pale green colour inside, mostly wooden, in a cross, cross shape, and a beautiful organ at the far end. Yeah. I'm going to put some pictures in the notes for the episode.
Right.
So.
Well, that was in the early 1700s, and then later, during the second part of the 1700s, we had another vicar, Johan Lahiander, who then ordered the sacristy here to be taken down and moved further away. And instead, he had this northern arm built. So after that, it became actually, it got the form of a cross.
Yes, which we can see.
But back to Henrik Karlborg, he was a very interesting figure. He wasn't pleased with the old pulpit.
Yes.
So he had a new one built. So it's actually a very early Rococo, they say. And you can see the 4 evangelists depicted there.
It's highly decorative, and you always think of Lutheran and Protestant churches being more simple and plain than Catholic churches are. But there is some gold leaf decorating here, and some beautiful pictures as well. And beautiful paintings.
He was also said to have bought this chandelier, and he also bought the first organ. He represented Närpes at the parliament in Stockholm. So at the same time, he bought an organ, and he also brought an organ player to convince the congregation that this was a good thing. But the congregation was a little sour because he had to wait 9 years before he got the money back.
Okay.
He had bought it for the organ for his own money. But the one we have over there now is the 4th organ, a Danish Christian organ. And in fact, then the oldest artifact that we have here in the church is this crucifix. It's from around 1470, and it was made by a master in Lübeck in northern Germany. And the sculpture itself is oak. And behind that, you actually have a chandelier that's quite different from the others. The others are more or less in the same style. This was brought by evacuees from Jakima, which was a municipality on the northern shores of Ladoga. It was brought here in 1944. You know that they had
this is when there was this internal migration when the land was lost to Russia.
Or Soviet Union at that time.
Yes, of course. I've recorded a podcast about this very event, and Satu, who is with us here today, her family were evacuees.
Yeah.
They didn't travel quite so far. They moved to Kite, just inside.
But the Jakima then had about 10,000 inhabitants, and all came. The current Närpes area took 3,400.
From that one area?
Yeah, from that one area. And the rest were placed in neighboring countries
so did
around.
Most of those people from that one town, Jokima, came this far west to the west coast of Finland? Okay.
They did.
Interesting.
And this church actually served as their church during roughly 1 year, 1.5 years. But then of course, this was a Swedish-speaking area, and the Jakima people, they were Finnish-speaking, so eventually they were replaced in Finnish-speaking areas near here.
Yes. Okay.
Kauhajoki, for one example. I'm going to tell you a little about the altarpiece. It was made by Per Hörberg, a Swedish court painter, and he has actually made 89 altarpieces. Most of them you find in Swedish churches. Okay. This is the only one in Finland, they say. Okay. And before, it was the trend at that time. So before that, the crucifix was the altar decoration, but then the altarpiece or the painting
Yeah,
substituted.
there's a large
Substitute.
painting of the crucifixion
Yeah.
there on the wall.
Yes, one interesting feature that you also find in other churches, we have these seven gravestones in the floor, 5 here and 2 in the sacristy. We can go there and have a look at the sacristy too. It's rather nice. 6 of them are from the 1600s. It was the tradition then to bury clergy. The clergy and also their families.
Within the church?
Yeah, within the church, under the church floor.
And are the remains still there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
1953, there was a big renovation here. They installed central heating. They took away the floor, replaced the floor, the ceiling, the benches were renewed, the windows. We actually have a couple of the old windows on both sides of the altar.
But it was much warmer when we came in, so you can tell that it's not still the original.
We got central heating. And then there has been a later renovation when the northern arm was exactly like the other ones. But the benches were taken away, also the gallery, to make place, give place to the organ. Okay, that's about it.
So we've just walked from the main part of the church into the sacristy, small antechamber to the side. What is this room used for?
Well, the minister or ministers, sometimes there are more than one. They and also the organ player. They come here to prepare for the church services or other events that take place here.
We can see a few wooden desks and tables around here. There's those 2 gravestones in the floor that you just spoke about, and paintings on the walls of some of the ministers over the years.
Former vicars. Yeah. Starting with Henrik Karlborg that I talked to you about, and then Laihian there. Those 2 were responsible for the extension of the church. And then there is one missing because he had to escape from the Russians in 1808.
Before his picture could be painted?
Right. Okay. I think his picture was painted, but it never came here, apparently. Okay. And then you go on to the newer vicars.
And you can see the hairstyles becoming more shorter and more modern as we progress.
Yes. And also here we have a Charles the 12th Bible. Wow. Karl den 12th. He was a Swedish king.
Yeah, beautiful old leather-bound Bible in a display case.
It's from
Huge book.
The early 1700s.
Now, outside this church, there's something else that makes this place even more special. Maybe why don't we go outside and talk about that?
Okay.
So now we've stepped outside, and this is what I think the church here is all about. Marianne, tell me, what are we looking at here?
Well, we're looking at, among other things, 150 church stables.
Yeah, it's an incredible sight. There's just one next to each other, rows and rows of these wooden red stables with yellow doors and some with black doors. And look at both sides. It looks like a holiday camp or something, but maybe you can explain why there are all these stables here.
Well, there used to be close to 400. And the oldest stables here are from the 1700s, but most of them are from the 1800s. And they were used as stables for horses. People came from far around to go to church, and they needed shelter for their horses. So while the people were at church, the horses were in their stables. They were fed and sheltered.
Tell me a little about the the culture of coming to church back in those days. We're in, as we said, the Swedish speaking part of Finland. Were there traditions coming from Sweden that needed people to use these stables?
Well, in fact, there is a place in Dalecarlia in Rättvik in Sweden where they have these church stables. There are 87 of them. I've actually been there, so I've seen them. And then in Sweden, I don't know about Finland, but in Sweden there are a few places like Gammelbyn near Luleå and Lövånger near Skellefteå, where they actually have these church cabins or houses, small houses where people actually stayed.
Okay, so were they travelling here and staying here for a long time? Was it some kind of pilgrimage or?
No, I don't know about the pilgrimage. I'm not aware of that. But because this was the church, the only church for quite a few miles, people came from Korsnäs, Jurva, Teuva, Kristinan kaupunki, Kaskinen, in fact, didn't have its own church till 1965.
So people were travelling a long way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Though Kaskinen had a room in a big house where they held church services.
Like a chapel or
yeah. Well, no, it was a big house, a merchant's house, Bladskagården, or Bladintalo in Finnish.
And do I understand correctly that people would come here for the whole weekend?
Yes, they could do so. But then later, of course, they came for the day because Närpes grew smaller. Earlier, Närpes extended from the southern border of Kristinestad, close to Vasa. But that was in the 1600s. But then in the 1800s, there was a municipal reform. And and also before that, Kristinan kaupunki was founded in 1649, I think. You better check that. and Kaskinen in 1785.
So the area of Närpes kind of became smaller as these other towns became a little bit bigger.
So then they came for the day or for the services.
Yeah. And put their horses in these little stables, in these little garages where they could be looked after.
And the protruding roof was there. They then put the carriage or the sled in winter.
Okay. So pulled it. Yeah, because as you're looking at it, the roof, as you said, protrudes maybe a metre or two over away from the front door. So.
Yes, not on all, but most of them actually. If you look on that side, almost all of them, and also these in front. There are a few.
I will take some photos when we finish talking and put them in the show notes, so the listener here can actually see what we're talking about. Is it possible to have a look in?
Yes,
one of
I
these?
can show you one of those tables. Okay. I've opened the door already.
Okay.
And you talked about some doors being black and some doors being yellow.
Yes.
There's actually something special about those, or actually nothing much special. But in 1880, the parish authorities decided that the doors be painted black, and also all the stables that were in front be painted red, so that it would look nicer.
Okay.
Then 36 years later, they decided suddenly that the doors should be painted yellow. And the thing was that some people didn't bother.
Okay.
So that's why we have yellow and black doors.
So are they owned by individual people?
Well, actually, they still are.
Okay.
But I mean, this is a place. It's a cultural heritage, and also the congregation or Närpes församling, the parish, takes care of the maintenance.
Yeah.
To go back to history, in 1930 there was a command from higher church authorities in Finland that all these should be taken down because they made the environment ugly. They were a disgrace to the environment.
Did they look bad in those days, though?
Well, some of them did.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think that's why they reacted, and that's why we have them here. But in other places they
took them down.
They took them down.
So when people were coming here for the church service or for the weekend, they each had their own stable.
Yes, they did. Every homestead, so to speak, had its own. In the stables, in the smaller ones, there's room for 2 horses, and then some bigger ones can take 3.
Right. Okay. And was there some like hierarchy as to who had their stable?
No. It has to do with the region
Okay.
or the villages they came from. The stable we're going to see belongs to the Mangård homestead. I think they're from Böle. It's a southern village. And all those stables that are in the same place, they come from people from the southern villages own those.
Interesting. So it's almost like the village all came en masse and then settled all together around the church.
Yeah, but I was going to tell you about this in the 1930s. The taking down on the stables was discussed. The matter was discussed at length here too, but nothing was decided because there were protests. The latest stable that was built in 1937, and it was a farmer from Yttermark, which is 10 kilometers north of here, who protested against the taking down of all the stables. In 1939 there were, according to the Wicca in Stenvall, there were 207 or 9, I can check that, stables. And then, the war started, so nothing was done. And then 10 years later, opinion had changed. So, and the parish authorities decided to let them stand.
Yes.
And then in 1963, this was made into a cultural heritage.
Yeah, and so it should be, because I discovered this for myself when I came to Närpiö, Närpes, a year ago, and I was looking for a building to have a meeting for work, and we missed our turning, and we drove down here, and suddenly we saw all these barns, as we thought, and I was with a young guy from Nepal, and we were both like, wow, what is this place?
Yeah.
It's a good thing that it's been kept, and that there's people like you to tell us about it.
A couple of summers ago, we actually took some of the asylum seekers and immigrant workers on a tour in Närpes. We went to the seaside, and then we at the end we came past here, and then they woke up.
Yeah.
Oh, what are these?
Yeah, exactly.
Actually,
it's really interesting to see, because, and I went back to Seinäjoki and I told people, hey, do you know about this church in Närpes? And everyone was like, no, what's there? And I told them, and even Finns from 1 hour's drive away were amazed to hear about it.
Well, we actually get a lot of Finnish groups nowadays, and they come from the neighboring municipalities and a little further away too. to see. And actually on Saturday I'm getting, I have a group from Lappi near Rauma.
Yeah.
It's a part of Rauma, I think now. And they're coming specifically to have a look at the stables.
Really? Yeah.
They don't have much time. They're going to Vasa to this World Heritage site.
There's a lot of world heritage to be seen and cultural heritage to be seen along here. Maybe you can tell me a little bit more about Närpes as a town. I learned that it has a very interesting dialect. How long has the town of Närpes existed?
Well, I mean, as I said, 1331 was the first time then when the name Närpes was mentioned in a historical document. And they know then there was a priest here because those were Catholic times. And there was, in fact, then a wooden church not too far away from here, but we don't know the exact place.
Okay, so that's sort of over 600 years now.
Yeah, but of course there have been people living here for 6,000 years.
And what about the language? I live in Etelä-Pohjanmaa. It's Finnish speaking. We've crossed the border, this big invisible wall between Etelä-Pohjanmaa and Pohjanmaa, and I was told everybody here speaks Swedish. And then when I came to Närpes 1 year ago, I was told we have our own dialect.
Yes. Absolutely. Well, not everybody speaks Swedish as their first language in Närpes, but 82%, and that's a lot. Mm-hmm. And we also have Finnish speakers, roughly 5%. But then we have a very big population from abroad, 13% now. This time have other first languages, and I mean it has changed during the past 20 years.
You mentioned before about there being a lot of migrant workers coming into this area, and this is to do with the local industry, the tomato growing industry of which Närpes is very proud.
Yes, mainly the tomato and cucumber industry, the greenhouse industry. That's where most of these people find work or come to work. But some of them have also come to these trailer factories.
Yes. I actually learned the other day that the most common family name in Närpes nowadays
is Nguyen.
Yeah, and actually I worked with somebody from Vietnam who said you pronounce it Nguyen.
Ah, you do?
Nguyen, yes, but it's Vietnamese name, Nguyen.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. In the newspaper, I read it too that this Vietnamese name is the most common.
We've also been recommended this restaurant to eat in that's inside the greenhouse. Have you been there? What is this?
Lindskök.
Have you been there?
Oh yes, I try to go there at least once every summer.
Okay, and
I enjoy their food too. They in summer they from the end of June to mid August they have lunch there so that anybody can come. But at other times it's you have to order and I think they want groups of 10 and more.
And this is fine dining Närpes
style. Yes.
I noticed they had a 7-course tomato-based menu. So if anybody is coming to the area, definitely come here, check out the church in Närpes, and then maybe find yourself some dinner at Lindskök.
Yes, absolutely. I've just enjoyed their ordinary lunch, but it's tasty. Okay. I love their panna cotta with either a tomato or a cucumber sauce.
There you go. So you have to bring the tomato and cucumber even into the dessert. So how does the dialect differ from standard Swedish?
Well, in Närpes there are actually three different versions of the dialect. But one thing that makes it special or different from standard Swedish is that we have 3 genders.
Okay.
Standard Swedish has only 2. So we three.
So does the human race. How has this language managed to find a third?
3 genders is typical of German.
Okay,
for
I
instance.
don't speak German.
No,
so.
but the German still has the 3 genders. Okay. So we say, well, I make it easy now. Storin, that's masculine. Soffun, that's feminine, and then bore, that's neuter.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's one typical thing. And then we have actually a lot of diphthongs.
Okay, yes.
That makes it special too. We have old diphthongs like in stein, röjk, bröt.
Diphthong is this sound with 2 vowels together
vowels.
where you flow
Yes.
from one to the other. I learned this word when I started learning Finnish. I've never heard it before.
Yeah, Finnish has a lot of diphthongs. Yeah. And then those are older diphthongs. Then we have newer like in rev, båt, hör. And then we have a lot of these sh sounds. Like stinne, stjorton, stjärnon.
And this is different to standard Swedish.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
They're not. We do have them in standard Swedish too, because it's skin, skjortan, stjärnan, but they're not as strong.
Yeah. Okay. How is the Närpes dialect different from Finnish Swedish?
Well, it is different. Actually, I'm not an expert on the dialect, but as far as I know, it's closer to Old Norse than of course standard Swedish. And then people visiting from northern Norway have also said that it resembles their dialects.
Okay.
And even it touches on Icelandic.
Do you know why? Why did it come here, and why did it sort of only settle in this town?
Well, every place, every municipality, and even you can say every region here in Pohjanmaa, Österbotten, they have their own dialect. So
really?
in that way, is Närpes is not special.
Okay.
But of course, our dialect is special for us. But if I go to Kokkola, for instance, I have a hard time understanding
Really?
when they speak their dialect.
Okay, interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
So dialects you find
all the way along the coast.
all the way, just like in Finnish-speaking Finland. So I mean, the Rauma dialect, for instance, is famous, and in Savo, they have their dialect.
That's interesting.
Yeah, everywhere.
So now we're stepping inside one of the stables. You'll hear that from the sound quality will change. We've been in the church, we've been outside the church, and we're now inside one of the stables. So, Marianne, describe this for me. Tell me what we're seeing.
Well, we're in a church stable, and it says here from 1732.
Yes, okay.
And it's one of the stables used to shelter horses while people were in church.
So this would have been one of the smaller ones that you said before held 2 horses.
Horses, yes.
We have this centrepiece here, so I guess there's one each side.
Yes.
And there's a feeding trough at the back there, so that would have had feed for the horses.
Absolutely. And most of the original stables had floors. So this there are many stables here which are not in as good as condition as this one, so without floors. Yes. But actually they had floors.
Yeah, and this door looks very small. I mean, even me and Satu, we're not the tallest, but we had to sort of duck to come in. Did the horses come through that same door?
Yes, absolutely. But they say horses were smaller in those days.
Okay.
But Per-Erik Björklund, who's one of the church wardens, told me that a few years ago they actually tried getting a horse inside here, and it worked.
It still works, even
Yes.
with bigger modern day
Absolutely.
horses.
Well, probably it was not the biggest horse they found.
But they still managed to get one
Yes.
through here anyway.
So it was doable.
Yeah, okay. It's really
Because
interesting.
that's actually one thing that people ask about. How did they manage to get the horses inside? But they are very how do you say agile animals.
So they managed to get themselves through the door into the shelter of the stables when in the winter time it would have been very cold outside.
And there is enough room here, I think, for a horse to get around or back out. Yeah.
It's interesting. Marianne, thank you so much for your time today and for showing us around here. I really appreciate it. And I will now go around and take some photos and add those to the show notes. So thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Thanks again to Marianne for her time when we visited Närpes. If you want to check out the show notes for this episode, they include some of the photos that we took on that day. Remember to subscribe to this podcast, rate and review the show. That'll help me find more people to join the audience. Also, you can connect with me on social media, on Twitter, @Explore Finland, on Facebook, Explore Finland Radio Show, also on Instagram, @Explore Finland. All different ways that you can keep in touch with me in between episodes of the show. I just wanted to say hello to a few people that have started following me in recent months on Facebook. So there's Ruben, who's in Mexico. There's Keke in London. Lori, who's in Indiana in the US. Jamie, who's in the UK. Margareta, Anuka, who are both in Finland. Mohammad, who's in Beirut. Jenny, who's also in Finland. I think actually here in Seinäjoki. So nice to have local listeners, Jenny, as well as those overseas. And also to Spencer, who's based in the UK. So you can see there's people all over the place that are interested in understanding a little bit more about what goes on here in Finland, and I'm very welcome to have you along with me. If you've got any subjects that you'd like me to try and cover in the podcast, I've had a few requests. One was from Keke, another one was from Henry, and I'm trying to bring some of these episodes to fruition. So keep in touch. Let me know what you like about the show, what you don't like. And until the next episode of Explore Finland Radio Show, thank you very much and goodbye.